Gentlemen, we have a very special topic tonight, a topic that's very close to my heart. It's a topic that was in the development stages for many years. Most of the Mar Mekomot, and the theme comes from a wonderful, wonderful shir that I heard many years ago from a very close friend of mine, Rabbi Gladstein, from Cedarhurst, New York. And I'm hoping that with Siyata Dishmaya, Hashem gives the right words to be able to give over this class properly, but more than anything with the right feel. Because outside of the information that it in itself is going to be mesmerizing and magnificent. It's that type of class. But if you look beyond the information, you see God's hand. If you were ever looking for God's hand, you came tonight to the right place. So let's start with a beracha, because in the crazy times we're living, we can use all the berachot we can get. Here we go, gentlemen. L'chaim, to a great group of guys. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Shahakol Nihya Bidvaro. Amen. You know, it's amazing that there's always those portions of the parasha that we learned when we were kids. And we always pictured it as a story. And that story stayed with us as a young boy's understanding of what a storyline generally carries, which is just simply a story. But then years later you grow up, and your learning is supposed to mature with you. And your level of intellect and your understanding of things as lofty as these incredible stories from this week's parasha and all the parashiot that we're involved in now, especially in Bereshit, it demands for us to take those young stories and revisit. Dig deeper. Mature yourself. Step up and look deeper and find out that there's such depth and brilliance behind what once upon a time we thought was just a story. Vayitrotzitzu habanim bikirba. Rivka imenu, after crying her heart out and praying because she was barren, Hashem hears the tefillot of Yitzchak Avinu, and his wife, Rivka imenu, she is now expecting Vayitrotzitzu habanim bikirba. And now the children inside of her begin to kick. And she says, Im ken lama ze anochi. Rashi tells us that when she was walking by the house of Avodah Zarah, the child was trying to push to get out. When she walked by the yeshiva, the child pushed to get out. She thought to herself, what's going on? This child is schizophrenic. What's happening? Could you tell these guys to quiet it down? If they hear the Arabic on the live feed, somebody might call national security.
They said the food's here.
That's good. That's good. No, it's all good. It's all good. The food is important. The food is important. No, I get it. The food is important. I understood their answer. I got it. But at the same time, there are people out in Montreal that are listening, so, they hear the Arabic, they might call, Okay, here we go. So, Vayitrotzitzu habanim bikirba. What's going on? She says to herself, what type of baby wants to get out Avodah Zarah and then at the same time wants to get out by the yeshiva? Im ken, lama ze anochi. What is to me? Woe is to me. Such a child. This is the child I was waiting for. So she goes to the yeshiva. She goes to the great study hall of Shem Ve'ever. And it's over there that she asks the rabbi, how does he explain this incredible phenomenon? And the rabbi tells her an amazing statement. Shne goyim bebitnech. You have two great nations in your womb. Ushne leumim meme'ayich yiparedu. And when they come out, they're going to go out to be incredible nations, right? They're going to be incredible people. If you take a good look, you'll see that Rashi, he takes one of those words, Shne goyim bebitnech. Says Rashi, Shne geim bebitnech. Not two great nations. Geim means two great men are in your stomach. And who are they? Now, right off the bat, I would say Yaakov, Esav. That's not what Rashi says. Shne geim bebitnech. There are two great men in your stomach. Says Rashi, you know who they are? Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and Antoninus, the future Caesar of Rome, the future emperor of Rome. Rashi, is that really who's in her stomach? I mean, the last time we checked, it's Yaakov and Esav in our stomach. Says Rashi, no. You know who's in our stomach? Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who's going to come from Yaakov, and Antoninus, the emperor of Rome, who's going to come from Esav. Later on, Antoninus converts to Judaism in secret. And these are the two great men that the rabbi tells her, don't worry, but now you understand the rest of the story. These two great men are in your stomach. You know, this is incredible. If the rabbi just wanted to tell her that, don't worry, there's an Esav who's trying to get out by Avodah Zarah, but patience, because out of Esav, there's going to be a great man that's going to come also. And that's going to be Antoninus, the emperor of Rome. Well, you know, there were many, many great converts that came out from Esav. And just to mention a few, you heard about Onkelos? Onkelos is the one that we read when we read Shnayim Mikra Ve'achad Targum. He's the Targum. Onkelos was a genius. He was a giant. He was zochet to write the Targum of Hamisheh Chumshei Torah. He was a convert. He originated from Esav. He was a convert. Yes? Yeah, but not from Esav. But Onkelos came from Esav. Amazing. Shammai v'Abtalyon, he was the great giants in Bnei Brak, the great Gedolei Hador. But they originated from Esav. They came from converts. Now I'm going to tell you a name that not too many people know about. And every time I say this name, people are like, what? Are you joking? You know who else came from converts? You know who else came from the lineage of Esav? Reb Meir Balanes.
By the water story, right?
Rabbi Meir Balanes originated from Nero Kesar. Nero Kesar was that general that was dispatched by Rome to go to destroy the Bet HaMikdash. He was that famous guy that the Gemara talks about, the general, that he took the arrow and shot it in the air, and any direction he would shoot the arrow, mid-air, the arrow would turn around and shoot towards Jerusalem. And he felt that that was God's message, that he should go to Jerusalem and destroy the Bet HaMikdash, and that God's with him. But then he went and put it to the test, and he turned to a young yeshiva boy, because in those years they had this little heebie-jeebie thing that they used to do, and it would kind of be like an omen to open the eyes. And he would ask the boy, what pasuk did you learn today in yeshiva? And whatever the boy answers you is a message from heaven to you. They had such a thing that they used to do in those years. So he asked the boy, what pasuk did you learn today? And the boy tells him the pasuk, how Hashem is going to take the goyim, the nations of the world, and get them to be his stick, to go and destroy the Bet HaMikdash. And then after that, God's going to turn around and destroy them. Nero says, huh? Oh no. Oh, that's not going to be me. Oh, you mean Hashem he's directing me towards Jerusalem to destroy the Bet HaMikdash. What, just to do the dirty work? But then he's going to turn around and wipe me out? No way. Nero, when he heard that, Nero, Kesar, Gemara says, he ran off. He disappeared. He converted to Judaism. And Rome lost a big general. They had to send back a new general with a new army to go and do the deed. From Nero came Remeir Balanes. So I don't get this. If the rabbi was simply coming to tell Rivka Imenu, Shne ge'im bibitnech, you have two great men in your stomach. And he's trying to explain, Rebbe Antoninus, a great man from Yaakov is going to be Rabbeinu HaKadosh. A great man from Esav is going to be Antoninus, who later on is going to convert to Judaism. So if I was just looking to make her feel better, that don't worry, yes, there's an Esav, and he's pushing to go out by the house of Avodah Zarah. But even from him, a great man to the Jewish people will come out. There's so many greater converts that are going to come out of Esav than Antoninus. Remeir Balanes is clearly one of them. Onkelos is clearly one of them. Why didn't Rashi tell us about these great converts destined to come from Esav in a way that it would be Menahem, in a certain way it would console Rivka, don't worry, yes, there's an Esav in you, but don't worry, great men are going to come out. Why did you pick on Antoninus? From all the converts and people that are going to come out of Esav, you picked on him? It sounds like there's something special about Rebbe and Antoninus in specific regard to Yaakov and Esav. And tonight's class is to bring out a historical brilliance of how the way Hashem manipulated detail behind the scene in history that you'd never believe is possible. I'm telling you, open your hearts. This one's a keeper. Hashem should give us and me the siyata dishmaya to give this over right, because this is matok bidvash. Dvash stands for Duvi ben Shushan. You know that. No, I'm just saying. But this is matok midvash. Really, this is something out of this world. So, gentlemen, stick with me on this. Let me tell you a little bit about Rebbe and Antoninus. So the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Daf Yud Amud Bet, the Gemara tells us about the relationship, the friendship, the famous friendship that there was between these two great men, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, and Antoninus, which goes on to be the young Roman emperor, one of the men that actually ruled most of the world under his reign, which is pretty amazing for someone who took emperor at the age of 20 years old. Let's talk about this friendship, this relationship that Rabbeinu HaKadosh and Antoninus had together. So Antoninus, he dug a tunnel that went from under the castle all the way out for miles to the house of Rebbe. Okay? And every night, for 21 years, Antoninus would make believe like he's going to sleep, and that he would slip downstairs to the dungeon of the castle, and there was a trap door, and he would make his way down and through this tunnel, and he would take with him 2 Roman guards, and they would walk with him and accompany him with torches through the underground tunnel every single night. And they would walk for miles until they would get to the house of Rebbe. And then upon entering the house of Rebbe, Antoninus would turn around and kill one of those 2 soldiers.
Every night?
Every night. For 21 years. Go do the math.
A lot of them were missing. 60,000 more. 65,000.
And then he'd enter Rebbe's house. and he would spend the night learning Torah with Rebbe all night long. And he would also be Mishamesh Rebbe. Now you're talking here about the emperor, the king of Rome. And he's here as a shamosh to kind of serve and help and take care of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. To the extent that the Gemara tells us Antoninus would get down on all fours, on his hands and knees, so that he would be a stepping stool for Rebbe to step up on his back, on his royal clothing, in order for Rebbe to be able to get up into bed. And Rebbe would say to Antoninus, Antoninus, what are you doing? You're a king. You're not allowed to prostrate like that in front of a simple commoner like me, let alone for me to step on your back, to step on your royal garments, your cloak. And Antoninus would tell Rebbe the famous line. He says, I'd rather be the shamosh of great men like you than a king of many dogs. That was Antoninus' famous line. Every night. And at the end of the night, when Antoninus finished learning, finished being Mishamesh Rebbe, he would go back to the trap door by Rebbe's house, go back into the tunnel with the awaiting soldier, make his way back down the tunnel, right back to the castle, and upon entering the castle, he would turn around and kill the second soldier.
So they wouldn't say anything, I assume?
So like this, the secret would remain for years, because if the word got out that the Caesar of Rome is visiting the rabbi every night, converting to Judaism, learning Torah, clandestine friendship and relationship, that would have caused a revolt. Antoninus would have lost his position as emperor. They would have came and killed him. They would have executed his family. This secret had to be guarded with his life. And that's literally what he did. He guarded it with the lives of his guards. He killed them on the way in, and he killed them on the way back every night for 21 years, 2 guards a night. Could you imagine that? You do the math, it's incredible. Antoninus in history is known in the history books as Marcus Antonio. So if you learn a little bit about Roman history, and you come across the emperor of Rome, Marcus Antonio, who was born in the year 140 BC, and who reigned from 160 BC to 181 BC, he reigned for 21 years. Those were the 21 years that he went back and forth in the tunnel every night and learned Torah with Rebbe and converted to Judaism and became a Talmid Chacham himself. Marcus Antonio, would you believe that? They called him Rabbi Marcus. No, I'm joking. They called him Rabbi Marcus Antonio. He became something of a great nature of learning. One night, Antoninus comes down the tunnel with the 2 soldiers, enters the house of Rebbe at the end of the tunnel, and as did every night, turns around and he kills one of the soldiers. But then when he enters Rebbe's house, he sees sitting there inside the house another rabbi, Reb Chanina ben Chama. Reb Chanina ben Bar Chama was sitting in the house of Rebbe learning. Antoninus got very angry. He turned to Rebbe and he said, Rebbe, we had a deal. We had a deal. This is a secret that my life depends on. If this ever gets out, if anyone would ever find out that I come to your house every night to learn Torah, converted to Judaism, the emperor of Rome, I'm dead. My family will be slaughtered. Rebbe, we have a deal. How come you let him in tonight? Why is Reb Chanina Bar Chama doing here? Rebbe turns to Antoninus and tells him, relax. Reb Chanina Bar Chama is not a human being. He's an angel. He's not what you would call a regular person. You have nothing to worry about from him. So Antoninus wanted to see, what is this Reb Chanina Bar Chama really about? It's not every day that Rebbe calls people angels and not men. So he wanted to put it to the test. So Antoninus turns to Reb Chanina Bar Chama And he says to him, Reb Chanina, could you do me a favor? I left one of my soldiers sleeping by the entrance to Rebbe's house. He was referring to the soldier that he killed, but he didn't tell him that. I left him sleeping there by the door entering Rebbe's house. Could you go over and wake him up and tell him that I'd like him to come inside? Reb Chanina bar Chama says, whatever the king says. Reb Chanina bar Chama goes to the door. And he sees a guy laying there by the door. And he starts to nudge him. And he sees the guy is dead. Chanina bar Chama says to himself, Uli, what am I going to do now? Says Rabbi Chanina, says the Gemara, if I go back and I tell the king that he's dead, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. And the Gemara says a person should avoid by all costs to be the bearer of bad news. On the other hand, if I don't bring him back to the king, then I didn't fulfill the mission that the king sent me on. When a king tells you to do something, you must listen. The king told me, go fetch that guy and bring him here. So says Reb Chanina bar Chama, I have no choice. He closed his eyes. He started to pray. And he did Techiyat HaMetim on the dead Roman soldier. Brought him back to life. And then nudged him and told him, the king is calling you. The dead soldier comes back to life. And he comes walking in with the knife right through his chest. He comes walking in and he comes up to the king. Ooh. Antoninus says, aha, now I get it. This Reb Chanina bar Chama, Rebbe, you're right. He's no ordinary guy. He's be'emet an angel. He's able to do Techiyat HaMetim. I guess somebody as lofty as he is someone very trustable. I assume that he is not someone I should worry about. So what does Antoninus do? He kills the dead soldier a second time. I hope you enjoyed that sentence. And he goes back to learning with Rebbe and he says, but Rebbe, from now on, no other rabbis. Keep to the deal. The deal was that when I come at night, there's no one here but me and you. Rebbe says, okay. Unbelievable. This is incredible. You know, Rabbi Miller, Rabbi Victor Miller, Zecher Tzadik Libracha, he wrote this magnificent book. Really, guys, if you had a chance to come across this book, you'll enjoy it. The name of the book is The Exalted People, written by Rabbi Victor Miller, Zecher Tzadik Libracha. In this book, he writes about the amazing relationship between Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and Antoninus, the subject of tonight. And he says there's something incredible. He says that right when Antoninus came to power and became the emperor, you know what the first thing he did? He went to Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and he gave over the power of the rabbis and the Torah institutions in the hands of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. You know what that means? That means that before he came to power, all the yeshivot and all the rabbis and all the shuls were in Rome's power. Feels like that in New York today. They can tell us when we open, they can tell us when we close, they can send sheriffs down and reopen and reclose. It's unbelievable what's going on now. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's why if you guys saw on the front door, there was a sign that said, we took it down, but then there was a sign that said, synagogue closed. And then right next to it, there was a sign in Hebrew that said, Yesh delet me'achora. We spoke about this in the past. Can I tell you? That's the way we were operating at one point in time. Right? Like Mashiach. Yesh delet me'achora. He always comes through the back door, right? Certain things have to be brought through the back door in life. Anyways, the first thing Antoninus did when he became emperor of Rome, the Romans, until that point, they dominated the power of the yeshivot, of the rabbis, of the shuls. If you wanted to hire a rabbi to a yeshiva, you couldn't. Rome appointed the rabbis. Rome appointed the chief rabbis. And it was all about money. It was like the Kohen Gadol. It was all to the highest bidder. The guy might not be worth anything of a rabbi at all, but because he had a monetary backing, or maybe he himself was wealthy, he was able to buy the position. So you understand what it looked like in those years. The rabbinate, Torah, the yeshivot. It was all one fake, hewy type of a situation. The first thing, the first thing Marcus Antonia did, the first thing, when he became emperor, he gave the power of the rabbis, the yeshivot, and the Torah back to Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He said, you're the Rosh Yeshiva, you're in charge, you are going to be the Nasi of the Jewish people. And that's why we used to call Rebbe Yehuda HaNasi. That's where he got the name from. He got that power from his friend Antoninus, who gave him the power now to start running Torah and Klal Yisrael and the yeshivot in a proper way. For the first time. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable what he did. Rabbi Miller says, right when Rebbe was given the power to reign over the Torah world, the rabbis, the yeshivot, as the Nasi of Klal Yisrael, you know what the first thing Rebbe did? He did the unthinkable. He did the unthinkable. Rebbe went and broke one of the prime traditions of the Jewish people. He took the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah, and he wrote it down. Rebbe saw that the oral Torah was being forgotten from Klal Yisrael. And although by Sinai we were given Torah Shebichtav, and we were given Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Shebichtav, the written law. But Torah Sheba'al Peh, when given to us from Moshe Rabbeinu, from Sinai, directly from Borei Olam, it was with a mandate. You are not allowed to write it down. That's why, Rob, it's called Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's not allowed to be written down. Bedafka. But Rebbe did the unthinkable. Rebbe went, and Rebbe decided, lasot Lashem, heferu Toratecha. Sometimes there's an lasot Lashem. Sometimes there is a shata dahak. Sometimes a rabbi has to make a very difficult call for the better of Klal Yisrael. And this isn't for anyone to do. This isn't even for regular rabbis. This is for the greatest of the generation. They have the shoulders to make this type of a call. And Rebbe made that call. And Rebbe did the unthinkable. And he wrote down Torah Sheba'al Peh. Unbelievable. Now, if you think about this for a minute, just to hit on this point for a moment, why be'emet from Har Sinai was Torah given in two types of parts? How come was it given? One portion was Torah Shebichtav, the written law, and then there was a portion that was given Dafka Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law, the law that's not allowed to be written down. Why would Hashem want it that way? Why would He want a part written and a part specifically not written, but Dafka through tradition? In the oral spoken law, from Rebbe to student, from all generations. Why? Gentlemen, I don't know when was the last time you were in a hotel because of COVID, maybe on business trips. But here in the United States, when you go into a hotel, that little wooden desk right next to the bed, if you open up the drawer, there's only one book inside of it. The Bible.
Usually throw it.
The Bible. Not on camera, Rob. Not on camera. Not on camera. After. Don't worry. I have a few jokes of my own. But the Bible. The Holy Bible. The Bible. In every hotel room you go. Hilton, Howard Johnson, Sheraton. Wherever you go in the United States, you open up that little drawer right next to your bed, there's a Bible there. There's a whole reason behind it, why the hotels are, but that's not tonight. But there's a Bible there, a Christian Bible. Yeah, the Christians have a Bible too. The Arabs have the Quran, which is, I guess, their Bible as well. You know why?
They don't have tradition.
Because they come and say, hey, Jews, you think you guys are special? You have a Torah? You have a Bible? We also have a Bible. We're no different than you. We also have a Bible. We have Genesis. They do. I mean, you take a look at the Old Testament, and you'll see. They have there in their Bible. They have Genesis. They talk about Adam and Eve. They talk about Abraham. They talk about the flood. It's all in their Bible. You know what they did? They took our Bible, and they copy and pasted, and they docked it up and twisted it and tweeted it to conveniently work with their story of their religion line of lies, so that everything should kind of line up in a way to be false, but claiming their story. And now they turn around and say, you guys think you're hot stuff? You have a Bible? We also have a Bible. You know why they were able to do this? Because our Bible was written down. And because the Torah shebichtav was recorded, it gave them an opportunity to copy, paste, tweak, and cheat, and defame the Bible of Israel by now saying, big deal, you have a Bible, so do we. Therefore, brilliantly, Hashem strategically told Moshe Rabbeinu, one portion of the Torah should be written, but one portion of the Torah, which is the explanation of the truth behind the written word, is the oral explanation, the oral laws. You cannot have a Torah shebichtav without Torah sheba'al peh. That I want to be given over verbally, orally, from rabbi to student, father to son, mother to daughter, and it should not ever be written down so that they may not take it from us. They may not take it from us. And God's plan was genius. It was godly. And of course, it worked. And it worked. That's why the Goyim have a Bible, but the Goyim do not have a Shas. They do not have a tractate. They do not have oral laws. They do not have Baba Kama. They do not have Sanhedrin. They do not have Masechet Ta'anit. Only we do. Because those concepts were laws that were given over from Moses to the Jewish people orally, verbally, and that remained exclusive to us. That's why, brilliantly, when Torah was given, a portion was given to be written down, but the other portion specifically was given not to be written down. And that portion that was given over Baal Peh is the real master key to even the portion that was written down. You can't understand Torah shebichtav without the explanation of the rabbis of Torah sheba'al peh. Because if you took it literally, you'd be wearing your tefillin right between your eyes. Ben enecha. Like that. You look like a unicorn every morning by tefillah. But what do you mean? It says Ben enecha. Why do you put it on your head? Baruch Hashem, we have a Torah sheba'al peh. Baruch Hashem, we have an oral law that explained to us the true meaning of the Torah. That wasn't given to the Goyim. That wasn't privy to the Goyim. And the way we kind of ensured that it stayed exclusive to the Jewish people was by the fact that it was not allowed to be written down. Like this, they can't steal it from us.
How did anyone remember all of it? Like, how did...
Rebbe to Talmud, Rebbe to Talmud, Rebbe to Talmud. It was unbelievable. It was recorded for thousands of years. In their minds. In their minds, it was the secrets behind the book. It was the secrets behind the book that was given down from rabbi to student, from father to son, from mother to daughter, for many generations, until it came to the generation of Rebbe and Antoninus. And at that time, because the Jews were not in control of the yeshivot, not in control of the rabbinate, not in control of the Torah, they had no power over it. So because of that, the rabbis of that generation were bought positions, and therefore they were hollow and bogus. And the Torah then wasn't just not flourishing because of that, it was being forgotten because of that. So Rebbe had what's called a hora'at sha'ah. Lasot lashem heferu toratecha. He had to do an emergency reaction in an emergency situation. Sometimes very serious situations call for serious reactions, serious measures. And Rebbe went and broke the law. Do you hear this? He broke the law to write it down in order to save Torah from being forgotten from the Jewish people. Shelo tishachach mipi zar'o. Like this, the Torah will not be forgotten from the Jewish people. So Rebbe finally wrote it down. If this is the case, gentlemen, open your hearts. You're going to hear something incredible now. And this is the beginning of tonight's brilliance. Comes Rivka Imenu in this week's parasha. And Rivka Imenu asks a question. But now the question is not your old storyline from third grade. Now the question is a heavy question. Says Rivka Imenu, Vayomer in Ken, Lama ze anochi. You know what she's asking? Im Ken, Lama ze anochi Hashem Elokecha. What is the good of the Torah of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, which was written down, if the Torah Sheba'al Peh that describes and explains it is going to be forgotten? Inken lama ze anochi. What is the good to have a written Torah, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, if the oral Torah, which explains it, may end up being forgotten one day by the Jewish people? It's with this that the rabbi comes back and answers her question. And you know what he tells her? Don't worry. The Torah will never be forgotten from the Jewish people. The Torah Sheba'al Peh will never be forgotten from the Jewish people. You know why? Because of the two babies in your stomach. Shnei ge'im bibitnech. There are two giants that are going to come out from your stomach that are going to ensure that the Torah will never be forgotten. Even the oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh. Says Rashi, you know who those two people were? Rebbe and Antoninus. Oh my gosh. So now we understand. He wasn't just giving her words of consolement and telling her, by the way, you have an Esav in your stomach, but hey, look on the bright side. He does have some good people coming out of him anyways later down the line. Few good converts on the way from Esav. No, that's not what he's saying. Because if that's the case, he could have told us bigger converts. He could have told us Unclis. He could have told us Rameir Balanes. He could have told us bigger people coming out from Esav. No, that's not what he was saying. He was answering her question. She was asking a pointed question. Her pointed question was, In Ken, lama ze anochi? What's the good of Anochi Hashem Elokecha? What's the good of the Torah shebichtav if the Torah sheba'al peh, which explains it, is going to be forgotten and lost? It's like having a lock without a key. What's the good to have a vault, a safe, if you forgot the combination? What's the good to have a vault if you lost the key to open it? Answers the rabbi, the key will never be lost. You know why? Because in your very stomach, there are two babies that from them will come out Shnei Ge'im, two great men that will ensure that Torah Sheba'al Peh, which explains Torah Shebichtav, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, will never be forgotten, because they're going to do the unthinkable. One day, they're going to even write it down. Who are they? Rebbi and Antoninas. And therefore, Antoninus was the most important goy to ever live in history. Because the minute Antoninus becomes the emperor of Rome, you know what the first thing he does? The first thing, he goes and gives Rebbe the power to take over the Torah, the yeshivot, and the rabbis, and gives Rebbe the power to do the unthinkable, to save the Torah Shebaal Peh from being forgotten. And that gave Rebbe the shoulders to go out, et lasot lashem, heferu Toratecha, and to write down Torah Shebaal Peh, and like this, it will never be forgotten from Israel. Wow. Now that's brilliant. But gentlemen, put on your seatbelts, because now we're going to hit the fireworks. Those were the salads. But wait till you see this steak. Where did this relationship start from? You know, we talk about Rebbe and Antoninus. Rebbe, the greatest Jew of the generation. Antoninus, the most powerful goy of the generation. The emperor of Rome. Best friends. How did that go down? How did that happen? Well, they just bumped into each other once on a bed. I mean, Hashem. But how did that happen? How did two men like this, such stature, get to bump into and meet each other in the first place? We see the amazing things that came out of the relationship. But where did it begin? Gentlemen, listen to this. This is a wild story. This story is so powerful, I don't have to tell stories tonight. The class is the most amazing story you'll ever hear. This is a story that God will say, sit back and listen to the most amazing story of the history of what I did for the Jewish people. Listen to this. So the Tosafot over there in Avodah Zarah, Yud Amud Bet, Tosafot tells us something incredible. At that time, before Antoninus was king, when they were very, very young, just firstborn, at that time in Rome, there was an edict, there was a rule, a gzera, that no one was allowed to do Brit Milah. Brit Milah was illegal. Rebbe's parents were extremely great and holy Jews. Rebbe's father was a great Gaon, a giant. Rebbe's mother was Sadeket, and they just had a baby boy. It turns out that now they're faced with such a decision. If you're caught giving Brit Milah to your son, it was punishable by death. Not just the child, the mother as well. So the family's lives were on the line. But at the same time, Rebbe's father, Rebbe's mother, great tzaddikim, tzadkaniot, kiddoshim, their son, not to enter the Brito shel Abraham Avinu, they were ready to risk their lives. They made a clandestine brit, an underground secret Brit Milah, and they gave baby Rebbe Yehuda, they gave him a Brit Milah. Only a few people knew about it. But you know how these things go. Sometimes the walls have ears, and even a few people that knows about it, the word got around, and a few people that were malshinim, that they used to tell on other Jews, to the goyim, thinking that they would find favor in the eyes of the goyim, they also heard that Rebbe's parents did Brit Milah on their new baby. And word got back to Caesar in Rome that there's one family that defied the rule, the gezerah of the emperor. When the emperor heard this, he was livid. He dispatched a group of soldiers. He sent them to Jerusalem, to Israel, from Rome. And they came banging down the doors of Rebbe's house. And Rebbe's parents was there. And they told Rebbe's mother, we have good suspicion to believe your baby had a Brit Milah. The emperor insists that you and your baby brought to Rome, and if it's true, you both will be killed. Rebbe's mother, for a moment, realized the danger she's in. She said, okay, let me just get my baby and put my stuff together. She goes out to the back, and Rebbe next door, Rebbe's parents lived next door to a family of goyim. And they were very good friends, these two families. They were neighbors. And the mother of the goyim next door comes to Rebbe's mother and says, I know why the soldiers are here. They're coming for you and your baby. They heard about the Brit Milah. They want to kill you probably. Listen, the same day that your baby was born, I had a baby boy born on the same day as well. And my baby had no circumcision. He's a goy. Let's save your baby and your life. Let's switch the babies. Give me your baby. I'll give you mine. You'll take my baby up to Rome. You'll show that he's Arel. And it'll save you and your family and the baby's life. And then when you come back, you could trust me. We will switch back our babies and you'll have your son back. This will save your life. Rebbe's mother knew that she can trust her good friend, her neighbor next door. And little baby Antoninus was handed to Rebbe's mother. And Rebbe, little baby Yehuda, was handed to Antoninus' mother. They were switched the day after Rebbe's Brit Milah. Rebbe's mother goes up and travels to Rome with the soldiers, holding baby Antoninus. And Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe as a baby, stayed back by the house of the goy next door, by the mother Antoninus, holding on to him instead. Rebbe's mother comes in front of the emperor, holding baby Antoninus. And the emperor turns and says, we heard that your family went against the gezerah, went against the rule of the emperor. It's punishable by death. I had you come here because I wanted to make an example out of you and your baby in front of the entire world. They're going to hear about a Jewish family that went against my word, and look what's going to happen to them. Rebbe's mother turns to the emperor and says, but your highness, this baby has no Brit Milah. I don't know what you're talking about. And the emperor says, open up the diaper and let's see. There's certain things you can't fake. Open up the diaper and let's see. They open up the baby's pamper, and the king couldn't believe it. The emperor sees that he's Arel, no Brit Milah. The emperor gets so upset. He calls from Israel the Malshin, the Jews that told on them, the ones that snitched, and he brings them to them. I don't know, I shouldn't say the Jews. I take that back. The Gemara says, Lav Dafka, if it was Jews. It might have been Goyim that found out. I take that back. That was a slip, a mistake. The Goyim come in front of the emperor, the ones that told on this family. And the emperor says to the Malshinim, to these Goyim, look, you made me bring this mother all the way to Rome with her baby for naught? The baby has no Brit Milah. What are you talking about? And the Malshin, the Goyim, said, it's the Jewish God. It was a Goy. It was the Jewish God. He does miracles for his people in order to save them. It must have grown back. The king said, I'm not going to buy that. You're a liar. And instead of killing the baby and the mother who are appearing innocent, he turned it on the Malshin, on the Goyim that told on them, and killed them instead. Justice was served. Rebbe's mother comes back to Israel with baby Antoninus. And gentlemen, I need to highlight something for a minute that's very important to this story. You understand that a newborn baby has to feed. A newborn baby has to suckle from a mother. Baby Antoninus, he was away from its mother for maybe a week or two, the time that it took for the trip to Rome and back, maybe even longer. And all of that time, how was this baby feeding? Says Tosafot, he was feeding from Rebbe's mother's milk. Antoninus was drinking from the milk of a great tzaddiket, the mother of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And then when Rebbe's mother returned, after Antoninus was feeding from her for weeks on end, he was given back to his mother, and the switch was made back as promised. Says the Ben Yoyada, says the Ben Ish Chai in his works, in his commentary on Shas, the Ben Yoyada, he says, thanks to those drops of holy milk that Antoninus drank from such a tzaddiket of a woman, Rebbe's mother, that's what brought him to later on be destined to be the next emperor of Rome. Wow. And I'll prove this to you, gentlemen. I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you. There's a Psikta de Rabbati that Rabbi Gladstein brings. The Psikta de Rabbati writes that when Sarah Imenu, a few parashiot ago, Sarah Imenu had Yitzchak Avinu at the age of what, 100? 100 years old, right? 99 years old. When Yitzchak Avinu was born to Sarah Imenu at such an old age, so the Pasuk says something that was like a joke in the eyes of the Goyim of the world. They said, what? Mi milel Abraham henika banim Sarah. Is it really possible? A woman that old, 99 years old, never had children, suddenly has a child? Is that possible? And she's actually feeding the child? So women, Goyim, came from all over the world to check out this incredible sight. It was like the Guinness Book of World Records of that generation. The oldest woman to have a child. They came from all over buying, step right up. They had, selling tickets to see who is this woman that actually had a child. We're going to test it out. We're going to find out if she really had a child at 99 years old or not. So you know what they did? Henika, listen to the pasuk. Henika banim Sarah. What do you mean Henika banim Sarah? Henika means that she breastfed many sons. Henika, she gave to feed. Banim. Banim is plural, many boys. Sarah. But she only had one boy. Who are these many boys that Sarah actually fed? So that's the Psikta de Rabbati. The Midrash writes that these people came from all over the world and didn't believe that she actually had a child. So they took their babies and gave it to Sarah and said, really? You just gave birth? You're feeding your child? Okay, let's see. Feed our child. Let's see if you can actually have the system in place to still be able to feed a baby at the age of 99. And says the Midrash, Hashem made a miracle. She fed hundreds of babies. She was like a fountain that didn't stop, says the Midrash. She fed hundreds of babies to demonstrate to the world that this was a miracle from God and these people were godly people. And she actually did have a child at the age of 99, and she really is feeding him, and she still has the capability not just to feed him, but hundreds of babies. And that's the pasuk. Mi milel Abraham henika banim Sarah. She fed many babies to prove the point that she actually gave birth to a child. Wow. Says the Psikta de Rabbati, every one of those babies that fed from the holy milk of the great Tzaddiket Sarah Imenu later on became the kings of their countries. Every one of them. The Zohar writes that those babies later on became the converts to Israel. That was their zechut, to be megayer and become part of the Jewish people, is because they were from those babies that originally drank from the holy drops of the great Tzaddiket Sarah Imenu. But take a look. This is exactly what the Or Zarua is saying. This is exactly what the Ben Ish Chai is saying. That because Antoninus drank from the milk of the mother of Rebbe, such a tzaddiket of a woman, that's why he became king later on. Just like we saw by Sarah Imenu, all those babies that drank from such a tzaddiket later on became the kings of their countries. That's incredible. That's unbelievable. So Rabotai, let's make an amazing observation now. According to this, we could explain something that bothered many rabbis over the years. We found over the years many different converts that came into the Jewish religion from the lineage of Esav. Tonight I just said a few of them because they were great. We said Rebbe Balanes, Uncles, Antoninus, we said already, but all these came from Esav. From Esav, a lot of converts converted to Judaism, came to the Jewish people. But from Yishmael, we don't hear about much. We don't hear about too many converts. I know you're going to tell me Reish Lakish, but Reish Lakish was a Gilgul, not that he was from the lineage. And there's a question if Reish Lakish was Chozeh B'Tshuvah, maybe he was Jewish all along, he just was off the derech. But I'm talking about converts. Many, many, many people from Esav converted to Judaism over the generations. But hardly any, if not any, converted from Yishmael over the generations. We don't find converts from the Arabs to Judaism. We find plenty of converts from Christianity to Judaism, from the Goyim of Esav to Judaism. Why is that? How come from Esav there's so many converts? And how come from Yishmael there are practically none? I'm not saying none, but one is like far and far beyond, right? How come that is that way? Makes sense now. When Esav was born, who did he feed from? His mother Rivka. Rivka Imenu was from the Imahot. She was the greatest Sadeket. And because he drank from Rivka Imenu, so his kids had within them the greatness in their DNA for an ability to actually make over to the Jewish religion. However, Yishmael, who did he suckle from? Hagar. Hagar was a Rashanta. Hagar was a Rashanta. She was not anything close to a tzaddiket. Lahefech. Lahefech. And because she was such Rasha, so the milk that came from her to her child was nothing compatible to the Jewish religion. And because of that, it's not in their makeup to be able to come over to Judaism. Whereas the lineage of Esav, we had so many converts. It's a very interesting observation. According to what we're saying tonight, it lines up nicely. Very interesting observation. Now, gentlemen, here's the fireworks. Get ready for this. Wait 1 second. What did we just say? We just said that when the babies were switched.
So that means Rebbe drank.
Oh my gosh, very good, Eddie. If the babies were switched, and Antoninus was given to its tzaddiket, Rebbe's mother, and Antoninus drank from the milk of such a tzaddiket, Rebbe's mother, and because of those few holy drops, Antoninus later on is destined to be the emperor of Rome, because he suckled from such a holy woman for a very small period of time, says Ben Yoyada. So if a few drops from a holy woman can influence a baby goy to later on go to greatness, but at the same time, Rebbe was given to Antoninus' mother, a goya. And at that time, Rebbe was drinking from the goya's milk. So if the tzaddiket's milk can take a goy and make him an emperor, has v'shalom, the goya's milk, what could it do to a tzaddik baby, to Rabbeinu HaKadosh? What type of influence did that milk have on baby Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi? It's a two-way road. We see what the holy milk did for Antoninus, but the chalav akum, what did it do for Rebbe? what did it do to the holy Rabbeinu HaKadosh? My gosh, Rebbe also drank. What did it do to him? And gentlemen, I want to tell you something. How did Shamayim let this happen? We call Rebbe by the name of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Do you know that the Gemara says that Rebbe, his entire life, never placed his hand below his belt? His hands never reached past his stomach. Don't ask me how. I'm telling you what the Gemara says. Gemara is describing the zihirut, the tahara, the kedusha of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. That's why they called him Rabbeinu HaKadosh. His hands never went past his stomach, never went past his belt. He was so holy that you can't imagine in his name they referred to him by his holiness. Such a holy, great man was given to drink from a Goya mother from a certain period of time. What did those drops do to him? What did it influence? How did it influence him? What did it do to his Kedusha? And gentlemen, don't take this lightly. Don't take this lightly. Because at the end of the day, the Megaleh Amukot tells us something of an incredible situation here. Says Megaleh Amukot, Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, was the Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. And that's the reason why the first three blessings in Amida, says Megaleh Amukot, each blessing corresponds to a different one of the three Avot. The Gemara in Berachot tells us that the first three blessings of Amida is referred to as the portion of Amida called Avot. Because the first three blessings correspond to the three fathers. The first blessing corresponds to Abraham Avinu. So it ends, Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Abraham. The second blessing corresponds to Yitzchak Avinu. And we spoke about this in the past. Because the second blessing is Baruch Atah Hashem Mehaye Hametim. And Yitzchak Avinu was the first person to experience Techiyat Hametim by the Akedat Yitzchak. We had a whole class on that. But the third blessing that means corresponds to Yaakov Avinu. Ooh, Ata Kadosh, but wait, V'Shimcha Kadosh. Your name is Rabbeinu HaKadosh. You're a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. That's why the third blessing corresponds to Yaakov Avinu, the Gilgul in Rebbe, which is Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Ata Kadosh, V'Shimcha Kadosh. That's the way the Megaleh Amukot explains it. Unbelievable. Rebbe was a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu, and that's why he was referred to as Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He was a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu, the Bechir HaAvot. Ata Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh. Such a giant Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu, and he was put into a position to drink from the milk of a Goya? How did that influence him? We know the holy milk of Rebbe's mother influenced Antoninus to become emperor. So what did the Goya's milk do to poor Rebbe HaKadosh in the opposite vein? What happened here? So here I got to tell you something that's beyond words. Here you're going to see the genius beyond what anything I could tell you. The genius of the way Hashem manipulates every breath, every instance, every detail. There is nothing that's beyond Hashem's grasp or grip. Everything is willed and directed by only Borei Olam. People are sitting back and they're worried about these elections. Don't you know who's behind it by now? Don't you know who's doing this? How many classes did we have already on this? Enough already. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Just the opposite. We came in that night and stayed up till 2:15 in the morning because we were waiting for a winner. Because we thought that there's only one or two end stories to this night. It's either he's going to win or he's going to win. Hashem says, no, not him and not him. This is going to run my way. And I'm going to show you that nobody's in control but me. Now you're going to hear one of those incredible stories behind the scenes. Genius of Kudsha Berichu. Here in this week's parasha, Yaakov Avinu, he comes to get the blessings. He bought those blessings, rightfully from Esav. Vayivez Esav et ha-bechora. Esav was mivayesh. He put down and degraded the Bechor. Yaakov Avinu purchased it. He is now the Bechor. Yitzchak. Maybe he didn't know about it. Or maybe he did. But Yitzchak turns to Esav and says, it's time tonight to give you the blessings. Go out and catch me a catch. Make me the food the way I like it. And like this, I'll be able to bless you, the world blessings of this world. The greatest blessings of this world. That night, he was going to give the 10 greatest blessings that were going to counteract the 10 klalot that God gave to Adam Arishon. That's how big these blessings were. That night was the night of Pesach. As there are many, many proofs in the Psukim that night they drank 4 kosot, that night they ate afikoman, that night he told him to go out and get him 2 animals, one for Korban Pesach and one for Korban Chagiga. Shnei ezim. That night was a big one. Esav goes out to hunt. Yaakov Avinu turns to his mother. What am I going to do? Those blessings belong to me. How am I going to get the blessings? Rivka Imenu turns to her son and says, don't worry. I'm going to prepare the food the way your father loves it. But you need to go and put on the coat of Esav. So that when your father feels it, he'll think it's Esav. What's going on here? Does that really add up? If you take a minute to step back and think about this, why would she be telling him to put on the coat of Esav?
He was blind now.
And the answer, Rabotai, is a very deep answer. Yes, we know those answers, Rob. He was blind. He's going to feel the fur, but then he's going to hear his voice. He's going to tell it's Yaakov, or maybe it says, I want to tell you another pshat tonight. I want to tell you the pshat of the Shvilei Pinchas. The Shvilei Pinchas writes that she turned to Yaakov and said, Yaakov, you're going to walk into that room. Your father's going to hear your voice. And the first thing he's going to ask is, who is this? Who are you? Hakol kol Yaakov, v'hayadayim yidei Esav. The voice sounds like Jacob, but the hands feel rough like Esav. Who are you? And at that moment, you're going to be put into a position where you're going to have to give an answer that's going to be against your complete essence. What was the essence of Yaakov Avinu? Titen emet liYaakov, Hesed la'Avraham. Yaakov Avinu was emet, truth. Your whole makeup is a man of truth. And now you're going to be asked by your dad, who are you? What are you going to answer? Ani bincha bichorcha Esav? You're going to be able to say that? The man of truth? Yes, we know. He said Ani, and then he paused. And then he said Esav bichorecha. But that's also playing a little bit of a ramayut. But you're the man of emet. How are you going to be able to say Ani bincha bichorcha Esav? How are you going to say that when you're the truthful guy? So she says, you know what you need to do? Put on the garment of Esav. When you put on his coat, the clothing that you wear influences a very big part of who you are. By just putting on the garment of Esav, it'll give you a certain chutzpah in you to do something that without it, you could not have done. Now that you put on the garment of Esav, this will allow you to be able to have a rebellious spirit, to be able to tell your father, Anochi, pause, Esav bechorecha. Those were the words that he said. Let's rectify that pasuk. Anochi, he stopped, Esav bechorecha. How does the man of Emet say that? Because he just put on the clothes of Esav. And the minute you put on the clothing of Esav, clothing has a very big influence on a person. A very big influence. Very big influence. The minute he put on Esav's clothing, he felt this rebellious spirit come over him. Suddenly now he could say something that before he couldn't say. Now, because of the moment's need, he's able to say, Anochi, pause, Esav bechorecha. Look at the effect that clothing has on people. But he needed it for the moment in order to get the job done. Amazing. If this is the case, Rabotai, now think about this for a minute. It makes a lot of sense now why she told him, go put on the cloak of Esav. Go put on his clothing. Because the minute you're going to put on Esav's clothing, you're going to start acting a little bit like Esav. You're going to start acting a little bit on the rebellious side. That's going to give you, at the moment, what you need to do that typically you couldn't. But now you have the chutzpah to do it. Who did we say was a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu? Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe. Do you know that the reason why we called him Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe Yehuda HaNasi? You know, the word Nasi is Rashi Tevo Nitzotz Shel Yaakov Avinu. Nitzotz means a spark. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Nasi, Nitzotz Shel Yaakov Avinu. They called him by the name Nasi because they wanted to demonstrate that Rebbe is a Nitzotz, a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. And if that's the case, history repeats itself. Yaakov Avinu needed something to push him to do the unthinkable.
That's why.
And to bring out the rebellious spirit in order to be able, for the moment, to get Klal Yisrael the berachot that they needed, in spite of the Titen Emet Liakov. But now, in the garment of Esav, he's able to say, Anochi, Esav bechorecha. So to Rebbe, who is the Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu, how history comes around and repeats itself again. At the moment that Rebbe was given back the power over the yeshivot and over the Torah, at a time that Torah Shebaal Peh was being forgotten from the Jewish people, Rebbe said, I need to do something. I need to save Torah Shebaal Peh. I need to do the unthinkable so that it doesn't get forgotten. I need to go and have the chutzpah to break the law and write it down. But where is Rabbeinu HaKadosh going to get the chutzpah, the power, the audacity to go and do something that was unthinkable up until his times? So Hashem already put the plan in play from when he was a baby, that at that moment when the babies were switched, Antoninus, yes, he drank from the tzaddiket, Rebbe's mother. He becomes emperor. But Rebbe also was placed in the hands of Antoninus' mother, the Goya, to drink a little bit of the untainted milk of a Goya, to give him the chutzpah, like the clothing of Esav, the milk of Esav, to give him the audacity and the chutzpah to do something that typically was unthinkable. And that was to take the Torah Shebaal Peh and write it down. That's where he got the chutzpah to do it, from those few drops of milk. Perfectly planned by God from the day that they were born, when they were both born on the same day, switched by birth, to send Antoninus to be emperor, so that one day he'll give Rebbe the power to do what needs to be done for Torah, to save it from being forgotten. But where's Rebbe going to get the gold to do something like that? Well, Rebbe was also switched, and the drinking of the milk of the Goya gave him that rebellious nature, that chutzpah, like Yaakov Avinu in the clothes of Esav, to do what needed to be do to save the Torah from being forgotten from the Jewish people. This is a mastery manipulation plan that God did to perfection of detail, just to answer Rivka's question. Im ken, lama ze anochi? What's going to be with Anochi Hashem Elokecha if the Torah Shebaal Peh that explains Torah Shebichtav is going to be forgotten, answers the rabbi to her question, it will never be forgotten thanks to the two that's in your stomach. Shnei ge'im bibitnech. You have two great men that's going to come out of the two babies in your stomach that one day will be the reason that Torah will never be forgotten from the Jewish people. God brilliantly is going to switch them by birth, and he's going to make one great because he's suckling from the milk of tzaddiket, and he's going to make the other one the rabbi that's going to have in him the brazenness to do something that no one else would do, al yedei, the milk that he drank from the Goya mother, switched by birth. And together they'll tag team, combo, making sure the Jewish people will never forget the Torah by together writing it down. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is brilliant. This is beyond. This is Hashem. This is Yad Hashem. Remember what I told you guys in the beginning of this class? I said to you, good you came tonight, because if you were ever looking to find the hand of God in the open, tonight it just slapped you in the face. You know, those love slaps. I'm talking about the sweet slap, the Chamovadia slap, the psh, I love you slap. Take a look how much the way we dress plays a role and influences our behavior. Take a look at how much the way we eat and what we eat, that plays a role in our behavior, in our Judaism, and our Avodat HaKodesh. So many guys don't understand why they have such a hard time understanding a Gemara. It has a lot to do with the things that they're not allowed to eat. It goes inside and it's mitamtem et halev. It brings out a terrible rebellious nature. And it's not just what you physically eat, but also what you see. When you see something that you're not allowed to look at, that is a spiritual achila. The eyes also take in, not just the mouth. The mouth takes in food, but the eyes take in everything. That's also a food to the brain, to the soul, to the human heart. And if you're taking in an unkosher diet through the eyes of what you're looking at that shouldn't be looked at, it kind of puts a terrible gunk in the machinery, in the system, and then the guy gets mitamtem, he gets stuffed up with garbage. You expect that guy to sit down and learn a Gemara, a Rashi, a Tosafot? You expect that guy to want to have enjoyment in praying? He can't feel spirituality anymore because he stuffed himself with the opposite-ended goods. Got to be so careful of what we look at. Why are we giving our 7th graders iPhone 12s? Why? What are we thinking? Do you know with one press of a button what they can look at? Do you know how many calls I get from kids? Once upon a time, 10 years ago, we used to get the calls about 12th graders, 11th graders having internet issues. You understand what I mean? Today, it's not 11th and 12th graders. I got a call on a 6th grader. A 6th grader. The mother caught him red-handed with the garbage. I didn't scream at the kid. I screamed at the mom, at the parents. How did you give that to him? How did you give that to him? What did you expect? Like the Gemara Berachot in the 5th parak says, you take a child, you wash him up, shine him up, polish him up, shower him up, put on his best clothing, put money in his hand, and stand him in front of the bed zono. And what do you expect? He ain't going to go in? You think we were any different when we gave him that phone? What were we thinking? What are we thinking walking around with phones without filters? What are we thinking? You think we're bigger? We're better? We're not. Who are we fooling? How many times do we have to fall until we realize that I got to get a grip on this? And the more I take in through my eyes that very terrible sort of nourishment, it stuffs the human body, brain, and the neshama is charcoal. How are you supposed to sit down and learn a Gemara? How are you supposed to actually want to be able to taste a prayer? Anything spirituality suddenly becomes very distant. I don't feel anything to it, Rabbi. You know why you don't feel anything to it? Because you stuffed yourself with garbage. Clean yourself up, man, and then come back. And then let's try it again with a clean system. And suddenly you'll see you'll be lit up on fire. The way we dress, tremendous influence on us. I have so many stories on this. I'm way over time. The things we eat completely destroy us. I was on a plane sitting next to a professor of a top college. The guy was supposed to be brilliant in many different areas. He asked me to go over with him a piece of Gemara because he heard that Talmud is very intellectually challenging. So I started to go over a piece of Gemara with him from Baba Kama, from Ketzar HaRegel. It was talking there about a great case, a case that we love to debate on. The case about the guy that went and he threw a pot off of a roof. And as the pot was coming down, before it hit the ground, there was a guy standing on the bottom with a baseball bat. And he smashes the pot to pieces before it hits the ground. Who's chayav? Who's chayav? The guy threw it off the roof or the guy who broke it?
I think we heard something about this like a baby.
Yeah, we did. We did this with the baby once.
The guy threw it off the roof.
So this is a tremendous debate in the Gemara. The name of the sugya is Mana Tvira Tavar. You broke a broken keli. I started to talk over this sugya with this professor just to show him the beauty, the geschmack, the enjoyment of a piece of Gemara. And the guy wasn't getting it. I said to him, but you teach physics. How come you're not getting this? It's like so simple. And then 10 minutes later, I understood why. Because when the stewardess came down the rows, asking everybody what meals did they order, I ordered a kosher meal, and this guy was eating taref, pork, ham, God knows what. And then I turned to him and I said to him, now I understand why a man of your intellect and your age can't understand the piece of Gemara that a third grader in our yeshiva could understand. Because you're so fashed, you're so stuffed up with the garbage that there's no room for it to go in. There's nothing for it to be tofes. There's nothing for it to be chal on. But then besides that, you also see the genius behind everything that happens in this world. Nothing happens for nothing. Every detail that takes place, it's Hashem behind it, driving it, manipulating it, guiding it for the best of the Jewish people, like we found out tonight. How many lessons could we learn from tonight's class? The influence of clothing, the influence of what we eat, the influence of what we look at, how it shuts down our system to anything of spirituality, but most of all, the reminder of Yad Hashem. If you were looking for God's hand in life, you go over this class again and again and again, and you'll watch that everything you heard tonight that happened over the years of Rebbe and Antoninus for the sake of Torah and the Jewish people happens every day in our lives if we just open our eyes. You'll see the hand. You'll see it clear. It smacks you in the face every now and then and reminds us, B'ni, I'm right here, taking care of you, doing everything out of love for you. Gentlemen, thank you for listening. Wait.